Here's why force buying in eco rounds might not be a bad idea. In most cases today, if a team loses the pistol round, they tend to save the money and not buy anything the second round so that they can buy rifles in the third round and hold the chance to win more rounds. This might not be the best idea sometimes. You see, by letting them win the second round scotch-free, you're letting them bank more money in their banks. Most pro teams today and teams in the high ranks full buy after a victory. Assuming they spent all their money in the pistol round, they get $3,000. 1k is spent on armor and 1600 is usually spent on a spectre, or 1100 is spent on a stinger, which gives a remaining of 400 to 900 points in the bank. And if they died in the first round, they will also buy abilities, giving them almost no money left. Most pro teams follow this pattern, as you can see here. If the armor is saved from the previous round, then the bank would be increased to 1900 at a max. Of course, that is not counting that the fact that they would buy abilities as well. So at the max, at the most safest scenario, the player would have 1900 in the bank in the second round after buying SMG. Instead, if they win the second round as well, scotch free, then the bank increases to a maximum of 4900 points. And that's quite huge, because if the player saves more from the pistol round, like not buying abilities or not buying armor and stuff, that would mean a definite op in the third round. This is why force buying in the second round might not be a bad idea after all. Something that players rarely realize as well is that Sheriff is a very, very good weapon. It costs $800 and it's available in the second round for everybody. It kills the enemy within 3 body shots and a single headshot at mid-range. This thing kills. Even Shorty is a very good weapon for a close range hold, and Frenzy is also a very good weapon. Most people do not buy in the pistol round at all. No sidearm, no abilities, nothing. Some people say that if we buy pistols in the second round, we cannot afford the rifles in the third. This may be true, but they do not take into account some other factors involved in the long run. Buying Sheriff or holding a close range with Shorty and getting at least one kill, it impacts the entire game by a huge margin. Even a single kill is very impactful in the second round. You see, the goal of a semi-force buy, i.e. pistol buy, not the force buy, in the second round is not to win that round, but to damage the player's economy. That's the aim of semi-buying the second round. That's what I suggest. When I play, I always recommend my team to buy Sheriff in the second round. It increases the chance of getting multi-kills by a huge margin, especially when the team plays together. Getting a single kill would mean that the enemy might not be able to buy a rifle in the next round, and that's a huge impact. Even if it's not a rifle, it might be certain important abilities or even armor, which is very important in the future rounds. It would also mean that if the enemy is killed and cannot buy and asks for a drop from a teammate, the chances of the team getting an op in the next round would decrease. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you get at least 3 kills in the second round and lose a round, the enemies would still have a very hard time affording a full armor rifle buy plus abilities. And if they drop weapons for their teammates, then they won't have any op anytime soon. And op is a very strong weapon. Dealing with one op is extremely hard, especially if the player is a jet. Even if you won't be able to afford the third round much after the Sheriff buy, which is true, the damage done to the enemy team would still be a lot more in the long run. I recommend everyone to buy Sheriffs in the second round, if you're in the lower ranks especially, since dealing with ops in lower ranks is very hard. The same can be said for higher ranks. When the enemy has a jet, dealing with jet op is very hard. So far, what I was trying to tell is, in simple words, is that if you're forced by the second round, the enemy's economy would be hit large if you get kills. If you don't get kills and die in the second round, it won't have an impact at all. But buying pistols in the second round would have a higher chance of you getting a kill, and even 2 or 3 kills would be a huge impact in the long run for the entire game for the enemy team, because they would have to drop to their teammates, or their teammates might not be able to buy some abilities or armor, which might be a game winning round. And if the teammates drop for each other, then they won't have a better weapon in the future rounds. It's an entire distributed economy that you're creating by killing 2 to 3 enemies rather than having a centralized bank, and it helps a lot in the long run. And if you're very lucky enough, you can also win the round with Sheriff. Just one headshot with the Sheriff, one, and they are dead. Unlike other pistols which require more than one. Ghost, I don't suggest buying Ghost as a semi-force buy second round. I think Frenzy is much better than the Ghost in the force buy round, semi-force buy round. If you win the second round, they will have a very less money the round after, and they will have to save or buy SMGs. Ultimately, buying an AWP would be difficult for them. Buying rifles with full armor and abilities will be extremely difficult for them. That's why I think semi-forced buying is not a bad idea. Even forced buying SMGs might also not be a bad idea. But forced buying SMGs is a very, very huge gamble and can lead to a bigger disaster if you lose that round, as you'll have to eco the future rounds and the enemies will have an easier time getting an AWP. Not only that, the enemies might have a bigger eco lead in the future rounds if you lose the second round with the force buy. Here's one example of a pro team force buying entirely, not pistols, SMGs. Immortals force buy after the lost pistol round with the sacrifice and abilities. It works out for them though in a very huge way. They managed to secure this round, forcing the enemies to either eco or work again with SMGs. This is an example of how the eco can be damaged by force buying in the second round or even semi-force buying. I suggest only semi-force buying. I do not suggest force buying SMGs, but it's up to you. It's a huge gamble if you force buy with an SMG, and I think it's a safer bet to buy sheriffs or other pistols and try to win the round. Classic alone would not be enough. It's always recommended to get a sheriff if you're good with headshots. Unfortunately, Immortals decide to keep the SMGs. I think they might be expecting Sentinels to eco or something. And they would have probably stood a better chance if they bought rifles, given the fact they had money to buy rifles. And unfortunately, they lose the second round. But the economy was still shifting here and there, so there was no ops anywhere close. And that really helped Immortals. Unfortunately, they lost the series, of course. I performed this sheriff force buy and I always ask my teammates to do the same whenever I'm doing that. So far, I have only lost those rounds where my teammates disagree to buy a sheriff, and I have won most of the rounds where my entire team buys sheriffs. And because of that, there is always huge impact. There was one game, I am very unfortunate, I did not record that specific moment. It was a 9-11 score and we were on an eco with pistols. I said my teammate to buy a sheriff, and he got 2 kills. It was his rifles away from the enemy team. He got 2 kills, I got 2 kills. The last kill was easy by my teammates, and we won the round because of that one round that we won from 9-11. Rather than saving the money and trying to go for overtime, we won the future rounds 10-11 to 11-11 and won the game entirely without going to overtime, given the fact that the enemy's eco was damaged. If we would have ecoed the 9-11 and gave them a 9-12 lead, chances of them having an AWP was very high and we would have probably lost the game. It's an example that I'm trying to give, and I don't have the recording unfortunately, but you have to take my words. And I'm very confident that force buying sheriffs in the second round is a very good idea. Anyway, let me know what do you guys think in the comments below. I hope you liked this video and learned something. Catch y'all later. See ya.